Ladies and gentlemen, hey, I know you're hurting. I know you're checking your phone, rereading old messages, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you should break your no contact. But listen to me, you don't break your healing for breadcrumbs. You don't reopen a wound just because the silence feels loud. You only break your no contact if something real changes, if there's genuine accountability, real growth, and not just another I miss you at 2 a.m. This isn't about ego, this is about protecting your peace. So today, we're going to talk about the only time it's okay to break that silence. Let's get real. When someone reaches out after a period of no contact, the first and most critical thing to pay attention to is whether they are taking full accountability for their actions. This doesn't mean vague apologies or generalized regret like "I'm sorry for everything" or "I miss you." Real accountability is clear, specific, and humbling. It means the person acknowledges what they did wrong without being defensive, without blaming you, and without trying to minimize the impact of their behavior. Full accountability means they have taken the time to reflect, truly reflect, on how their actions hurt you, how they contributed to the breakdown of the relationship, and what patterns they repeated. It's not just saying, "I'm sorry I hurt you." It's saying, "I understand how what I said that day made you feel like you didn't matter, and I was wrong for that. I ignored your boundaries, I dismissed your needs, and I was operating from a selfish place." That kind of language shows awareness. It shows they've looked in the mirror and done some uncomfortable soul searching. You shouldn't have to explain to them why their behavior hurt you again and again. If someone truly gets it, they'll come to you already knowing, already feeling the weight of their choices. And here's the key, they won't try to justify it. They won't say, "Well, I was going through a lot," or "You pushed me to that point." They'll own it. Even if they had their own struggles, they won't use those as shields or weapons. They'll simply admit that they messed up and take full responsibility for their part without dragging yours into it. Blame shifting is one of the most toxic things that can happen in a relationship. It erodes trust, invalidates your experience, and keeps the cycle of pain going. When someone doesn't take full accountability, they're still trying to control the narrative. They want to be forgiven without really doing the work, but when they truly take ownership, they give up control. They understand that forgiveness isn't owed, that reconciliation is not guaranteed. They come back not demanding space in your life, but hoping to earn it. This kind of accountability isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, grounded, and raw. You'll see it in their tone, in their posture, in their willingness to sit with the discomfort of the damage they've caused. They won't rush your forgiveness. They won't tell you to just move on. They'll give you time, space, and room to process because they understand the depth of what they've done. Another important aspect of accountability is consistency. If someone says they've changed but still acts with the same pride, defensiveness, or manipulation, then nothing's really changed. Words are cheap. Accountability is not just about the initial apology, it's about the follow-through. How do they show up now? How do they talk to you now? Do they interrupt? Do they minimize? Do they gaslight? If so, they haven't changed and they haven't truly taken responsibility. Taking full accountability also includes respecting your boundaries. Even if they want to talk, they won't force it. They won't guilt you into reconnecting. They'll honor your need for space because they understand that your healing matters more than their comfort. That's what mature accountability looks like. Not rushing the process, not pushing for instant forgiveness, just standing in the truth of what they did and showing that they finally see what you've been saying all along. When someone claims they've changed, it's easy to get swept up in their words. They might say all the right things, send long messages, or even cry and tell you how much they miss you. But none of that means anything unless their actions consistently match their words over time. Consistency is the true test of change. It's not about how convincing someone sounds in the moment. It's about what they actually do, day in and day out. When a person genuinely wants to rebuild trust, they don't just make promises, they follow through on them. They show up when they say they will. They respond with respect, not defensiveness. They no longer behave in the ways that hurt you in the past, and they don't do it just for a week or a month. They do it continually because it's not about performing for you, it's about who they've become. Real change reflects in patterns, not performances. One of the biggest red flags during reconciliation is when someone tries to use their words to cover up their lack of progress. They may talk about how much they've grown or reflected. But if they're still reactive, still blaming, still emotionally immature, then nothing's really different. Actions always tell the truth. If someone says they respect your boundaries but still crosses them when it's convenient, that's a contradiction. If they say they want to rebuild trust but disappear when conversations get hard, they're not serious about doing the real work. Consistency means showing emotional reliability, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. You'll also notice that when someone's actions align with their words, there's a calmness in how they move. They don't need to over-explain or convince you. They're patient. They know that trust takes time and that you have every right to be cautious. They're not in a rush to get back to how things used to be, because they respect the fact that things shouldn't go back to what they were. They know that moving forward means building something new, something healthier, and that takes effort, not just declarations. Another thing to look for is how they handle triggers and setbacks. Anyone can be calm when everything is going well, but how do they act when they're upset, frustrated, or not getting their way? Do they shut down, lash out, or revert to old patterns? Or do they take a breath, communicate differently, and show that they've developed emotional regulation? This is where consistency really shows. It's not just in how they behave when they're trying to win you back, it's in how they handle real life situations after the honeymoon phase of reconciliation wears off. People who have truly changed don't need constant reminders of what they said they would do. They take initiative. They are proactive in checking themselves, in holding themselves accountable, in keeping their own promises. They don't wait for you to call them out. They catch themselves. That kind of maturity is rare, but it's the only kind that matters when considering whether to break your no contact. Lastly, when someone's actions match their words, it makes you feel safe, not confused. Not anxious, not second guessing every conversation. You don't have to constantly interpret mixed signals or wonder what's really going on. There's clarity, there's stability. You can trust what they say because their behavior has proven it. And that consistency is what builds a foundation strong enough to even begin considering rebuilding a relationship that once broke your trust. Real growth and changed behavior are the most powerful indicators that someone is truly different from who they were when the relationship broke down. It's easy to say, "I've changed," or "I'm not the same person anymore," but true transformation shows itself in the way someone lives, thinks, reacts, and treats others, especially you. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't come from guilt or desperation. It comes from deep self-awareness, hard conversations with the self, and the willingness to sit in discomfort long enough to make different choices moving forward. You can always tell when someone is trying to appear changed versus when someone has actually done the inner work. When someone is only acting changed to get you back, they usually mimic healthy behavior temporarily. They say what they think you want to hear, they behave well until things get hard, and then the mask starts slipping. That's because real change isn't performance, it's rewiring. It takes effort, discipline, and a desire to grow that has nothing to do with impressing or winning someone back. A person who has truly grown will not only acknowledge the pain they caused, but will have taken active steps to understand why they did what they did. They'll have confronted their own patterns. Maybe it was emotional immaturity, avoidant tendencies, control issues, codependency, or unhealed trauma, and they will have taken steps to break those patterns. This could mean going to therapy, reading books, journaling, or having tough conversations with people close to them. But more importantly, they won't be telling you all of this just to prove something. They'll talk about it with humility, without needing praise or recognition. That's a sign that the work was real. Changed behavior is where growth becomes visible. If they used to yell, now they pause and listen. If they used to shut down or give the silent treatment, now they communicate even when it's hard. If they used to make you feel small or question your worth, Now they speak to you with care, empathy, and respect. You'll notice how they interact with others too, not just you. Growth touches every area of their life. They may be more patient with friends, more responsible in their commitments, more aware of how their actions affect the people around them. Real change also means they no longer try to manipulate or guilt you into responding. They don't use emotional blackmail. They don't try to make you feel bad for needing time or distance. Instead, they honor your healing journey. They understand that their past actions had real consequences, and they're willing to live with those consequences without pushing you for immediate forgiveness or contact. They're no longer entitled. They're respectful of your space because they've learned that real love doesn't demand, it respects. You'll also notice that they're not trying to avoid accountability by fast forwarding to the good times. People who haven't grown often try to skip the process and just pick up where things left off. But someone who's truly changed will want to rebuild the relationship differently. They won't avoid uncomfortable conversations. They'll welcome them. They'll ask what you need, what hurt you, and how they can show up better, not because they're trying to manipulate their way back in, but because they genuinely care about being a better person, regardless of the outcome. True growth brings self-responsibility. They're no longer blaming you, their childhood, or outside circumstances for their choices. They've learned to recognize their triggers, to process emotions in healthier ways, and to take ownership without shame. They're not just reacting anymore. They're responding with awareness. Their behavior reflects that they've not only seen the problem, but have worked hard to change their part in it. That's the kind of change that matters. That's what makes reconciliation even worth considering. One of the most important but overlooked conditions for breaking no contact is your own healing. You need to be in a place where you can respond from clarity, not from emotional impulse. The early stages of no contact can be filled with loneliness, anxiety, and the overwhelming urge to reach out just to stop the discomfort. But breaking that silence before you've done the inner work only reopens old wounds and places your emotional well-being in someone else's hands again. You have to know that you're no longer seeking closure, validation, or temporary relief. You are grounded enough to make a decision from strength. Healing isn't about forgetting the other person or numbing your emotions. It's about reconnecting with yourself. It's when you've taken the time to reflect on the relationship with honesty, without idealizing it or only remembering the good parts. It's when you can recognize what went wrong, what you accepted that you shouldn't have, what patterns you were stuck in, and how much you've grown since then. When you've truly started to heal, you begin to see the relationship from a place of truth, not nostalgia. Clarity comes when your nervous system isn't constantly in flight mode anymore. It's when you're no longer triggered by silence, no longer obsessively checking for signs that they're thinking of you, and no longer willing to betray your own boundaries for the comfort of a reply. You start to trust your instincts again. You know what you will and won't accept. You don't need someone else to tell you what you're worth because you've remembered it yourself. This shift is internal and powerful. It changes the way you react to everything, especially the person you used to feel so powerless around. When you've healed, you stop hoping they'll come back and start asking whether they even deserve a place in your life anymore. That shift isn't rooted in bitterness, it's rooted in self-respect. You're able to look at the situation and ask hard questions. Are they capable of meeting your needs now? Have they shown growth or just surfaced with pretty words? Are you truly open to reconnection, or just tempted by the idea of comfort and familiarity? These are questions you can only answer when your mind is calm and your heart is steady. Emotional impulse often disguises itself as love. It tells you that you miss them, that things weren't that bad, that maybe if you just talk, it will all make sense. But healing teaches you how to recognize the difference between love and attachment, between intuition and anxiety. It gives you the pause needed to separate what's real from what's fear-based. If your urge to break no contact comes from panic, longing, or desperation, it's not time. But if you've taken space, done your inner work, and you feel emotionally neutral, clear, not chaotic, that's when you can even begin to evaluate whether breaking no contact is the right move. Another sign that you've healed is that you've detached from the outcome. You're not breaking no contact because you need a certain result. You're doing it because you're emotionally equipped to handle whatever happens. Whether they respond with maturity or fall back into old patterns, you're prepared. You won't be shattered. You won't spiral. You know how to protect your peace, how to walk away again if needed, and how to stay centered no matter how things unfold. That kind of emotional stability only comes from doing the hard work alone, grieving, reflecting, rebuilding your self-worth from the inside out. Healing doesn't mean you're completely over everything or that you never feel sad. It means you've regained control over your reactions. You've learned the lessons from the past, and you're operating from self-awareness, not survival mode. You can have compassion without falling back into old cycles. You can love someone from afar without inviting their chaos back into your life. You have enough distance to see the situation for what it really is, and to make decisions that protect your growth, not sabotage it.